My first technical skill for this project was editing, which is basically how smooth each transition is, how everything sounds together, also the length of the podcast. So ones, twos, threes, fours, there's a lot of silence in them. It's not completely in the right order, like the intro might be after the segue, stuff like that. It's obvious that all the different parts were recorded at different times, so it sounds very choppy and very quick, and the podcast is over the limit that I specified. Fives and sixes, sevens and eights, there's barely any silence. It's in the correct order. Each part fits well with the rest of the podcast, and it's within the limitations. So basically how I would evaluate this is how much silence is in the podcast between all the different parts, if it's in the correct order, if it sounds like one person is talking at once and not different parts recorded at different times, and how long the podcast is. So I would say that I did pretty good at it. I would have given me a 5-6 because my podcast was over the limitations I said by a couple minutes, but I couldn't really edit anything out. All of my stuff was in the correct order. There wasn't really any silence. There was a couple seconds whenever I was doing my interview, but I couldn't really manage to cut any of that out. And in my opinion, it sounds very fluid, a lot like a conversation. So I feel like I did pretty good at that technical skill. My next technical skill was talking. This is how nice the talking sounds, whether or not it sounds really scripted, how it's organized, and just the language used. So ones, twos, three, fours. The talking sounds very fake. It doesn't really sound like a discussion, which I was looking for by doing my interview because I wanted to sound interesting to listen to and not so scripted and stiff and stuff. And there's only a little bit to no organization in this segment. Like, I didn't know what I was talking about. The interviewee didn't know what she was talking about. Basically, it seemed like whenever I was filming the podcast, that I was unprepared for the project and didn't know what I was doing. 5, 6s, 7s, 8. The speaking is more like a discussion, like you would go up to someone and have a discussion about this. So it's interesting to listen to. There's barely any script used, mostly just bullet points of information to cover. Everything's really organized, and it sounds organized and not rushed or unprepared. And the student, I know what I'm saying. And so I would basically evaluate this by how fluid and like a discussion it sounds, if it sounds really scripted, organization, how prepared. I would say either a 6 or a 7 because, in my opinion, it sounded a lot like a conversation, which I was going for. I had some bullet points of my research and information I wanted to talk about, goals for which segment, what we would be talking about. I know my interviewee, she also had notes on what to talk about and stuff like that. And then my last skill, technical skill, is the audio quality, which is basically how good the audio sounds for the listeners and if it's good quality and stuff like that, which is difficult to do because I don't have an actual microphone. So 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, the audio is very fuzzy and it's difficult to understand some parts. There's a changing of volume, like one part is really quiet, the next is really loud. There's a lot of background music, background noise, like brothers or mothers or siblings, stuff like that. And most importantly, the host and the interviewee's audio sound different. Like, it's obvious that one was filmed very loudly and the other one was very quiet. So 5, 6s, 7s, 8 would basically be the audio is really clear and easy to understand, which is really important for a podcast. The volume is pretty much the same throughout the episode. There isn't much background noise, and that me and the me and my interviewee, our audio sounds similar, has similar quality. I will evaluate this by making sure that everything is easy to understand, so the audio is clear, the volume is at a constant volume, there's not much background noise, and how my voice and my interviewee's voice compares. I would give myself maybe a 5 because one problem I had was whenever I did the interview, how I did it was it caused the audio to be a lot quieter than my other parts that I filmed alone, so I had to refilm that part, so all of them were the same volume, so my podcast is very quiet. But I think the audio is as good as I could have gotten it, and I pretty much did the best I could with the stuff I had. So, thank you.